Okay, so before we can add or subtract, we need to make sure that we are dealing with apples and apples. We're dealing with a common denominator, and in fact, we're not going to deal with mixed numbers either, just to make absolutely sure. So if I can zoom in over here off to the side, here we've got two fractions that we want to add together. 2/3 plus 1/4. Now we can't just add 2 plus 1 and 3 plus 4. It won't work. It's not equivalent. So we need to find the equivalent fraction of 2/3. And as you can see down below, we've already started that process. So just like we found that we wanted a common denominator of 12, 3 times 4 is 12, and 2 times the same number gives us the equivalent fraction of 8/12. Now you might be saying, well, why 12? They told us that before, but why is it? We want to find the lowest common multiple of these two. So if I did multiples of 3, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, and I can stop there because I can see where I'm going. And then multiples of 4, 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. Well, I'm done. That is my lowest common multiple, and that will then be my common denominator. With small numbers like this, you'll always find that if you multiply the denominators together, that will give you a common denominator. It won't necessarily be the smallest, and I'll show you that in a second, but it will work. You will get a common denominator. So I've worked out the lowest common multiple, which I've now placed on the bottom, and I showed you how I got 8/12, which is the equivalent of 2/3. But now how am I going to get 1/4? Well, I know that I've got to keep my 12s so that I can add apples to apples. So 4 times what will give me 12? Well, if I divided 12 by 4, in my calculator I did 12 divided by 4, I would get the answer 3. And so sure enough, 4 times 3 will give me 12. So what's my top number going to be? Same operation. 1 times 3 gives me 3/12. So I've got a common denominator now. I can just add up 8 plus 3, and that gives me 11. And that's that number here. That gives me 11, and what's going to go on the bottom? It's a common denominator. So if I had 8 wedges of a 12th, these are 12ths, just imagine, and I added 3 more, they're still 12ths. We keep that common denominator. Let's do a different one. So now we have 7/8 minus 9/16. Now I could multiply 8 times 16 to get a common multiple, but it would be huge. And then we'd be dealing with huge numbers. So let's again look at what is the lowest common multiple between them. Remember, multiples are always larger. So 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Hang on a second. I've already got it. So 16 is actually going to be my common multiple. So I don't have to change this one. I'm going to change my denominator on this one to equal 16. And how do I do that? 8 times 2 gives us 16. You could use a calculator. And so 7 times 2 is going to give us our top number, which is 14. And again, we've kept this one just the same, only because it already has the common denominator. If I use my calculator, 14 minus 9, or my brain, I'm going to get 5. So can I reduce that any further? I can't. 5/16, that's my number. Now let's just stick with addition and subtraction before we move on to multiplication. So here I have 2/3 minus 4/7. Now I can't subtract these because I need a common denominator. So I could go through the multiples of 3 and 7 to find the first lowest common multiple, but I also will tell you, if you do 3 times 7, you're going to end up with 21, and that will be our lowest common multiple. If you want, again, you can do multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 5 is 15, 6 is 18, 7 is 21, and then with 7, 14, 21. Oh, look, it happened again. So we're going to stick with 21 as our lowest common multiple and our common denominator. So we're going to rewrite this with a 21 on the bottom, 21. So how on earth did I get from 3 to 21? Well, 3 into 21 is 7, so 3 times 7 gave me 21. 2 times 7 is 14. Minus 4, let's see, 7 times 3 gave me 21, so I'll do the same to the top number. 4 times 3 is 12. So now I'm comparing apples and apples. 14/21, which is the same or equivalent to 2/3, minus 12/21, which is equivalent to 4/7, That's going to equal 14 minus 12 is 2 over 21. Now, I can't reduce that any further, so that is my answer. Now here, I've just got to do an additional step. So I want to always convert mixed numbers, I'm saying this because my writing on this pad is so atrocious, to improper fractions. And we want to do that because it stops us from making silly mistakes. So I've got 3 1/2. So we've been taught to do 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7 halves. Another way to think about it, though, just to spell it out for you, 3 wholes is 2 over 2 is 1, 2, 3. So that's another way to write 1. 2 halves, 2 halves, 2 halves, plus 1 half. So what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It gives us the same answer. So that's how we've arrived at that, but that's the shortcut. If you multiply by 3, the denominator, and add 1, you get your 7 over 2. And to that, I'm going to add 9 times 1 is 9, plus 5, we learned earlier, is 14. But that's over 9. Now, that's step 1. Step 2 is we want a common, if we're adding, denominator. So between 2 and 9, what is the common denominator? Well, if I multiply them together, I'm going to get 18. So I figure that's probably a pretty good guess for what my common denominator is going to be. I could always work out 2, 4, 6, 8 until I get to 18. But look at 9. The second multiple of 9 is 18, and that's divisible by 2. So we're cooking with gas. So how did I get from 2 to 18? 2 times 9. If you want to divide 18 by 2, you'll find that number 9. And then I do the same thing. 7 times 9 gives me a pretty big number, which I think my calculator will tell me is 63. This is outrageous. And if I do 9 times 2, I get 18. So 14 times 2, I get 28. Now I'm going to leave the 18s there. I'm going to move off to the side because it's some number of 18ths. And 63 plus 28 is 91. Now, I'm going to fool around with my calculator because if I just went on my calculator and divided 91 by 18, it will show me the answer. And I'll see if I can show you that. It's a very long video. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to promise you that 18 times 5 is going to get us to 90. And if 18 times 5 gets us to 90, we've got 1/18 left over. This is the calculator, the sharp calculator that you should have. If I put 91 and then divide that, which is what a fraction is, by 18, so there's the top number, and my denominator on the bottom, I get 5 point blah, 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 blah. But you've got this magical button here, your ABC button, that will convert that to a fraction for you. So what that says is you've got a 5 with a remainder of 1 remainder 18, or that comes out as a fraction of a mixed number 5 and 1/18. That's how you do it on your calculator.